the St George side today. There's one change to report following the injury of former Queenslander Clinton Moore. Former Brothers player Mark Coyne moves to the wing, and the experienced Michael Beattie returns to the top grade in the centres. Ryan Johnston also makes his return from an injured cheekbone, and up in the forwards we'll be looking to former Bronco Billy Noak, who's back with the Dragons, and he's out to prove a point or two.
Young Steve Renouf gets his second chance at the top grade after his debut against Western Suburbs, and utility player Gary French finds himself in the unusual surroundings in the centres with Peter Jackson. The Broncos' platform of success in '89, their committed pack of 6 forwards remains intact.
Kicking so important, and of course psychologically the Broncos thinking about next week's Panasonic Cup. They'll need to have their minds on the conditions today to ensure they play at their maximum.
So from the kickoff it's going to be taken by Big Gene Miles. Miles straight ahead, and is going to be put down into the Cogra mud. Coming across underneath him to put him over will be Mark Coyne. Going to be lost this time. St George end up with it, and coming away there is a half-back Linane, and he'll get up to play it, quickly spreading it across field, coming up quite strongly over there.
Inside the 5 metres, the Brisbane side, there'll be a tendency to run onto the ball as quickly as you possibly can to try and move up on the defence.
Madison has just discovered that it's very, very boggy out there, and in fact there's a chance they could lose their boots.
Alrighty, so there's Walford putting on the first points on the board. Over it goes, a goal for St George, and they open up a lead here in the early minutes of the match. And at this stage we're almost 10 minutes into the first half of the match, and David, a lead here for St George of 2 points to 0.
Yeah, and a very vital one too, Bill, and they're on the bus. This could be another chance. Streaking away, and that's the try to Johnston. That's the try they wanted so early in this game. That's why the fans have braved the conditions. They have sensed an upset against the competition leaders, and it's 6 points to 0.
Yes, as we said a little while ago, looking for mistakes from the opposition inside their own territory. Scrum was back, quickly away, and of course with that 5 metres at the base, quick hands, Peter Gill rushes out, held up the pass beautifully, and on came Johnston, the captain Ryan Johnston, hit the pass. Peter Gill it was, who stood in a heavy Lewis tackle. Good work from Gill, beautiful hands, stood up nicely. The ex-Brothers player gave the pass up to Johnston on the burst. No one at home for Brisbane, and this is a very important start for St George. They got the early points they were looking for.
Ricky Walford, the third leading point scorer in the Premiership, raises the flags. And have we got an upset on our hands here today at Cogra Oval? More action to come on the other side of this commercial break.
Michael Beattie, who wasn't needed in that try-scoring movement for St George, has left the field of play. He's being, at the moment, his hand is being stitched by Dr. Bill Monaghan in the St George dressing rooms. He'll be back shortly.
Okay, well that's the situation at St George, leading by 8 points to 0. Another break. A big run upfield by Darren South. He's got the pass away to Johnston. Out for Walford. Walford around Renouf, and Walford goes in for another try.
Brilliant passing movement by the St George Dragons. It was South who made that initial break. Ricky Walford's finished it off. Brisbane not intent to put the man on the ground. They don't want to play football here today. St George have decided they've got to do their job. It was through their own insistence they wanted to play here today. On the Medway replay, big charging run by Osborne. He rucks it solidly to midfield. Brisbane not committed to the tackles. Longhurst there a dummy half. Fires the ball out. Gill again, a beautiful baller. South straight into the gap. Away they go. Quick hands then out. Out to Brian Johnston again. Ricky Walford too much pace. He gets away from Renouf and goes across there nicely.
Ricky Walford with a difficult kick in these conditions from near touch. He struck it beautifully. Oh, bonus points. 14 points to 0. St George over the Brisbane Broncos. They camp just outside the 22. Langer, the long pass for Lewis. Then in turn for Big Gene Miles, running out a beautiful ball. Here's a chance, Madison, turning it back for Wally Lewis, and he slides. That's experience. That's a great try.
Good work for the Broncos. They're prepared to move the ball. Under these conditions, had there been a leather football out there today, we would have no contest whatsoever. Would have been a run from dummy half on every occasion. Brisbane showing they're prepared to move the ball out wide. I think it was a pass from Gene Miles that did put the ball up here to Madison. There it is. Miles to Madison, straight through. Lewis had cut back on the inside. Madison finds him nicely by spinning to look for him, and then dives low and hard. Linane was no chance stopping him. Lewis slid over the try line by a good 5 or 6 metres. Look at this. Hits the ground beforehand, but still gets well across, and safety first football.
Could be, with this kick, the first player to post 200 points for the club in their short history in the Winfield Cup. The flags go up. 200 for Winfield Cup points for Terry Madison, and his 50th point of the season. But more importantly, it's brought the Broncos back into striking range at 14 points to 6.
Now a crossover there, this time lost, rolls on the ground, going to be picked up by Renouf. Renouf still going, on his way goes Renouf, setting sail for that line. He's going to be caught by Walford from behind. Yes, he is, and pulled to the ground, but a big run by Steve Renouf.
Good chasing by Ricky Walford. Steve Renouf a real flyer, and Walford had the pace.
So now they spread it wide. That's LeMan with it, getting it away to Dowling. Dowling up over the top tail. Oh, lost by Wally Lewis, knocked it on. And the crowd love that one, Tony.
Walters a dummy half, coming open side again with Langer. They're setting it in the middle of the field. Langer passed it back beautifully for Madison. Another pass for Walters. Walters kept the pass alive. Greg Dowling. And Greg Dowling scores his first try of the 89 season. But what a vital one with 5 minutes to half-time, and a possibility of the other 2 points coming from the conversion from Madison brings them right back in the ball game.
Brilliant stuff by Brisbane. Madison it was, who's been on the end of most of the passes today. There's the number 13, been roundly congratulated by all these players. It was started by Alfie Langer, turns it back on the inside. Good tactics in wet weather football. Madison was the link man. Kieran Walters managed to stand on his feet, just flicks it up, and Dowling packed up beautifully to get well across the try line. As we said, under atrocious conditions. Madison was on the inside, found Kieran Walters, and Walters, look at that, that's beautiful play, Walters. He was taken by about 3 players, still managed to get free, got the hands there and fired it in mid-air. I don't believe this.
There's the kick, it goes under the bar. So 14-10 the score, so close to half-time here at Kogarah. And Tony Durkin, the most incredible thing about this, that we've seen 4 tries and 4 great tries in the first 37-38 minutes of this first half in quagmire conditions. Now Langer searching out wide, the gap open. Ball's loose on the ground, a chance. Oh, it's racing away, Johnston.
It's been knocked down, he's called it back.
He's called it back, the crowd went up in expectation.
Well, did he knock it down though? The referee decided he did, the crowd is booing. Boy, what a vital decision that was. Could have been Johnston in for his second try. Here it is, Langer it was, who tried to get through the defensive line. Was the ball knocked down? Gee, I didn't think it was.
They got a great start to the match, rattled up a big lead, and have been able to defend it ever since. Even though the Broncos kicked back and got it to 14-10, it's St George putting on the pressure now as South will play it. From the play the ball, dummy half is Longhurst, he clears it, cutting his way through Hoogerworth. Crashing for the line here, he unloaded it, in for the try.
Looked like Brian Johnston, I think.
Yeah, Brian Johnston it is.
They're elated. They came up against the top side in the competition. The crowd have come out in their numbers. St George looked like they won a grand final. A pass beautifully up. Brian Johnston got the pass. The little hooker in Gary Longhurst is absolutely wrapped in things. St George have applied the pressure. They jumped to a lead of 14 points to 0 at one stage. Brisbane fought back valiantly. It hasn't been enough though. The replacement forward there, and Hoogerworth stood his ground, popped the pass up, and for his second try, Brian Johnston goes across. St George have won this one. The decision by Craig Young to play under these conditions has been vindicated, and they have played some great football, St George, to defend this lead and extend it to come up with the premiership points.
I don't think any of these St George supporters will worry too much whether he kicks it or not. But you're talking about Longhurst, wasn't he excited? He had a bit to say to the Broncos, to say, well, you can take it and see you later. There's the kick and it's there. 20 points to 10 in the closing stages of the match.
14-10, had they trapped St George inside their own quarter, I think this side would have found it very difficult to get out. But having said all that, credit to the Saints. They've come up winners against the top side in the comp.
Yes, taking it out to the tune of 20 points to 10.
3 tries to 2. 2 tries to Johnson, 1 to Walford. Walford had a tremendous game with the boot, kicking 4 goals. The Broncos' tries came to Lewis and Greg Dowling. 1 goal from Terry Madison to bring up his 200th point for the year. But in the end of the day, it was St George who reigned supreme. Their 3rd win on the trot. They have won by 20 points.